Hey everyone, in this video let's go to question 252, meeting rooms on Leetcode. This is part of a blind 75 list of questions, so let's begin. This problem is actually a premium problem, and that's why we're doing it on this Leetcode website. And you can see the number is different, but otherwise the question and the test case, they should be the same. So we'll do it here. So let's take a look at what this problem is. Given an array of meeting time intervals consisting of start and end time, so S1, E1, S2, E2, where SI is less than EI, we want to determine if a person could attend all of the meetings. We have a further piece of clarification here that if we have these two meetings, start time of 0 and end time of 8, and then another one start time of 8 and then end time of 10, this is still possible and this is not considered a conflict. Even though these 8s here are the same, basically you can start a meeting and stop it at the same time. So that's not a conflict. Okay, so let's take a look at the examples that we have here to better understand this question. And again, this website allows you to do the premium question, so we'll be using it whenever we want to do a premium question that's on Leetcode. Okay, so let's see in this first one, what do we have? Well, we have a couple of starting and ending times here, and we can see that actually in this first meeting here, we're going to be starting it off at time 0, and it's going to end all the way at time 30, which means essentially that these two meetings over here, we cannot do them regardless because this one meeting room will take into account all of these, like it will overlap with all of these meetings here. So in that sense, we cannot do it. What about in this one over here? Well, in this one we can do it, right? Because we have a meeting that starts at time 5 and ends at time 8, and then we had another one that starts at time 9 and then it ends at time 15. So here we can do it. The times will not conflict. Now, one of the things about this problem that I guess they should have mentioned that they didn't is that the intervals that are given to you, they won't necessarily be in sorted order, right? So for example, we might get an interval where we have something like this, right? We have something like this. And so if you really think about it, like when we are processing this, just looking through it, it kind of makes sense for us to sort it, right? Like when we are looking through these meetings, what are we doing? Well, what we're doing is like we're going through the meetings and we're essentially just checking to see that like there are no overlaps, right? There's no overlaps. And in order for us to determine if there's an overlap or not, we have to somehow determine like an order. We have to understand that there's an order to these intervals. So we can see here that in this first example, it's actually already sorted. And really the question is like, what do we want to sort it based off of? The starting time or the ending time, right? Because we have the starting time here and the ending time here. If you really think about it, like if I was to kind of ask you this, then meetings, they start at a specific time and they end at a specific time. And if we want to find out whether there's any sort of overlap, then the ending time is like what kind of determines that, right? Because if this ending time, for example, like ended at like time, for example, 10, then okay, maybe like we can't attend this meeting here, but we can definitely like attend this one here, right? So it kind of makes sense to sort it based off of the starting time here because we want to know the meeting that we can attend the earliest. And essentially, if that meeting we can attend the earliest, if that one finishes, then what can we do? Well, then we can go ahead and run the other meetings. So we need to like obviously like start the earliest meeting and then see like if we can go through the other one. So this problem is actually not too difficult because if you think about it, all we really need to do is we just need to sort our results or sort our intervals. So I'll sort our intervals and I'll sort it based off of the start time. So that's this lambda x at 0 is the start time. And then I essentially just want to go through my list and I want to make sure that I can visit every single interval or every single meeting. So how can I do that? Well, we can maybe have something like a for loop here. We can do for s and then e in. Let's see, it would be intervals. And then we can actually just start off at the first one, right? Because, or like the first index, because we'll obviously visit this initial meeting here. So really, if you think about it, we can just check. So if not intervals or length of intervals is equal to 1, well, then we can just return true, right? But otherwise, here we have at least 2 intervals. So then what can we do? Well, what I need to know now is like, I want to go to the previous interval and I want to see if I can essentially take its place, right? So maybe what might make more sense here is we have like, maybe for index item in enumerate intervals. And for item here, I will actually just put like start and end time here, right? Start and end time here. Okay, so what can we do now? Well, now I'm on a specific interval, right? So I've skipped this first one here. Now I'm on this one. What I essentially need to check is like, is this the end time over here? Is it less than or equal to the start time over here? Maybe this is a bad example, but if you take a look at this one, is the end time over here less than or equal to the start time over here, right? So this is start, this is end, this is start, this is end. As long as the start time of the new interval, the new meeting, is greater than, or maybe it's equal, maybe like this is also 8, then it's valid, right? So we can do something like, if the start time of the new interval, if this is greater than or equal to the ending time of the last interval, which we can get at intervals, and we'll do index minus 1. That's why we have the index here. So this is currently index, and the index minus 1 is here. And then we'll get the ending, which is this value here. If this is the case, then we're good, right? So then we don't have any problems. But if this is not the case, then we have a problem, right? Because then we have something like some sort of scenario where we have something like this. So I'm basically just going to go ahead and invert this entire thing. And if that is the case, then I can go ahead and just return false. Otherwise, if I have never returned false, I will go ahead and return true. And so this is how this question is. So let's take a look. Okay, I realize there's actually a few errors that we need to take care of here. So first of all, this interval object is not subscriptable. The reason we're getting that is because our list that's being passed in is actually of class interval. So like there's no such thing as x at 0. So this x at 0 should actually be x at start. And then similarly here, this should not be like the end, like index 1, it should be dot end. And then similarly, this one should be interval dot start. And so that fixes that error. One more thing we have to handle is in this like loop over here, because we're doing enumeration, I don't know actually how to start my enumeration at index 1, but we do want to start at index 1 because otherwise like we don't have like a index -1 if we start off at 0, so it's going to error out there. So we can do if index is equal to 0. Let's just go ahead and skip this iteration, but otherwise it should be good. So let's go ahead and run this now. Best solution that we can get. So for the time and space here, well, because we're sorting, it's n log n. Okay, thanks for watching.